Lionel, is that you?
There, I think I got it.
To silence your phones.
Yes, silence your phones. Bruce, silence your phone.
My phone is already on silent.
Yeah, mine is too. That's why I can never, when I get people send
That's
messages.
when I send you messages, you don't respond for like half hour later.
Exactly, because my phone is on silent. If I wanted to talk to you, it would be on.
It'd be on so I could talk to you. Yeah.
Exactly. Bruce, can I ask you a question?
Certainly you may ask me a question.
Do you have any records available? I know you keep the records. I know you keep extensive records.
Are we talking 45s or 33 and a third?
Exactly. Is this the
Or
first?
78s. I do have a couple of 78s.
Is this the first podcast since the last podcast?
Yes. Extensive research over the many, many years has shown that indeed this is the first podcast since the last podcast.
I was writing an intro for one of the podcasts. I got to see if I can find it. And I have finally been able to succinctly describe our podcast. Let me see if I can find this. I gotta find this.
Wow. Yeah. This would certainly be a first to succinctly describe what the AML podcast is all about.
Yeah.
Lord knows many have tried and failed miserably.
Here it is. We can't help you with any of these problems, but if you listen long enough, you'll discover that transparency is rule number one here at the old AML network. But we can't verify that if that's correct because accuracy has never been a consideration.
That nails it. That positively nails it.
We are as transparent as we possibly could be, but
that should be printed in like a giant piece of poster board and put up on the wall.
We cannot verify that we're transparent because accuracy really has never been anything that's been of any consequence to us.
That's true.
Do you ever read magazines? You're a fan of the hobby?
I've been in the hobby since I've probably got the first Lionel train set at about 5 years old, like many of us.
Do you ever read that Railroad Model Craftsman?
Yeah, I do read it on a monthly basis, and I in fact have the print digital combo of that, and so I enjoy getting new ones. And I've got some in my filing cabinets in the basement back to about 1974, I think.
Here's my problem with Railroad Model Craftsman in the last few years, particularly over the last 2 or 3 years. And now let me tell you a little story. I'll try to be as succinct as possible, but it's a little story. So I was in what do you call those bookstores? Borders. I was in a Borders not that long ago in the Altamont Springs Mall. Altamont Springs is in Central Florida, and I was in the Borders bookstore, and I sauntered over to the magazine aisle as I have a tendency to do. And, of course, there was RMC, Railroad Model Craftsman. And the thing that I don't like about Railroad Model Craftsman now is that whenever I see it, I end up buying it. It just draws me to you.
You know, there's a way around that.
Well, no, I
have a subscription, then it shows up, and you don't need to worry about going to the bookstore.
I have access to the digital copies too, but I still end up buying the.
You still like the hard copies and go and sit on your picnic table out back and read it.
It's just that it's one of those magazines that you cannot. It's just so well done these days.
Oh, it's a beautiful.
It's always been a great magazine. Don't get me wrong. But anyway, so I thought to myself, "Hey, Lionel," I says, "what about if we have the whole RMC editorial staff on at the same time, like a round table?"
What, you mean like the whole editorial staff of Railroad Model Craftsman magazine?
Yeah.
You were going to arrange to have them all on the podcast at one time?
Actually, I didn't do any of it.
It was all
Otto's idea, Otto Vondrak, who's the editor of the magazine. It was all his idea. He contacted me and said, "Hey, let's do what about a show with all of us together?" And I went, "Perfect," because I've never met Harry Wong and I've never met Justin.
Oh, there we go. And you didn't have to do much preparation on this. It was all done for you.
Exactly. I just wrote it down.
Perfect. It's like the trifecta for you.
I just wrote it down in my calendar.
Yes.
And as you know, I'm extremely organized. And
you were very organized.
And I saw when it popped up on my calendar, I was like, boom, I'm right there, man.
Exactly. Well, what a stroke of luck to have a wonderful organized person like Otto in charge of this.
Yeah, exactly. So come on in, guys. Come on in from the green room. They're all in there eating shrimp.
Oh, well, we got the new shrimp right last week.
Yeah, the new shrimp.
You guys have new shrimp? I just got used to the old shrimp.
Well, that was last week's new shrimp.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah.
Tastes like it.
That I picked up in a little stand from at the. The problem with the new shrimp is, here's the deal. So occasionally we broadcast from the Florida office, and the shrimp that is technically new to the green room, I purchased on my way back in Georgia. I buy at this little shrimp stand near Interstate 95, midway through Georgia, and I purchased it on my last trip north. So, and I just left it in the car until, a few months later, I drove back south again. So it's new to the green room, but it's not necessarily new as in fresh.
Well, we still appreciate your hustle.
I just appreciate you took the tails off the shrimp off for us. That was really kind of you.
Yes, it was. And
he didn't take them off.
Justin, the tails is the best part.
Yeah, we'll leave the rest up to your imagination how the tails are no longer there. But
so we now have there's 5 of us now, so everybody's familiar with Bruce, the mail boy, and me, Lionel, the evil overlord, and we also many of our listeners are also very familiar with Otto Vondrak, the editor of RMC. But we have 2 brand new guests on the show tonight. We have Harry Wong, who I've never met, but I've heard of for years.
I don't know where you've heard me from, but okay.
Well,
better wanted posters across post offices.
Yeah, usually.
Yeah, there's going to be some great stories. And then Justin, I forget. I apologize. I don't remember your last name.
Justin Franz.
Franz, like as in Frans.
Franz.
Would you like to
Franz?
Franz.
Is that?
Yeah.
Something you may want to know, Justin, that we talked about before you came in from the green room is that transparency here is the number one rule, but we really accuracy really means nothing to us. So,
well, that's good to know. That's really good to know. I'm gonna make up my entire backstory now.
Yeah, make up your entire and the way you spell your name really is of no consequence to us. No, it does. Franz,
there will be no quiz. There will be no quizzes at the end for the viewers. So, it's okay.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll stop taking notes then. Thank God.
Yeah. So Justin, you're the newest member of the crew, are you not?
Yes, I am. I came here in March of 2020 or April of 2020. So this is now entering my 3rd year.
Wow. And give us a rough idea. You live not exactly, like we don't need your street address or anything like that in your zip code or nothing, but roughly whereabouts are you located in the lower 48?
I currently live in Columbia Falls, Montana, right next to Glacier National Park in northwest Montana.
And when you say currently, like, are you on the move or?
I'm constantly on the move because they're constantly chasing after me. No, I'm kidding. I've lived here for about 10 years now.
Okay. How'd you end up in Great Falls, Montana?
Columbia Falls.
Falls. Well, again, you see, there you're going for accuracy.
Well, that journalism degree of mine. I was born and raised in Maine, but went to the University of Montana in Missoula and graduated in 2011, and then got a job at a newspaper up in the Flathead Valley, and thought I would just stay for a summer, but it ended up staying here for about 10 years. And then Otto offered me a job at RMC and Rail Fan and Railroad, and decided to jump at it.
And this Otto fellow you speak of, how does a guy from Maine end up going to university in Montana?
Well, I come from a family of railroaders. My uncle and my dad both worked for the railroad. My uncle worked for Montana Rail Link, based out of Missoula. And so when I was in high school, went out on I'm a model railroader, but I'm also a rail fan. And so when I was in high school, my dad and I went out on a rail fan trip to Western Montana / visit family out here. And while I was out here in 2005, I decided to take a tour of the college. They had a really good journalism program, and decided I would stay and go to school here.
Holy mackerel! That must have been quite a change of.
Yeah.
I mean, Columbia Falls is like you're not very far from. You're not very far from Alberta.
No, very close. It's about from my doorstep to the Canadian Pacific's southern main line in British Columbia is about 90 minutes.
Wow.
So very close to Canada.
Wow, that's quite a. There must have been some homesickness or did you stay with your uncle when you were out there?
No, I lived on campus and had a lot of friends in Missoula. It was good. It was good to have a family close by, just in case you ever need anything or have somewhere to go on Thanksgiving. But no, it was a lot of fun.
Wow,
getting a change of pace in a different part of the country. So it was a lot of fun. Thought I would stay in Montana for 4 years and ended up staying for going on 15.
Yeah, and now you're settled and you have a wife and the whole 9 yards.
Yeah,
all
wife,
right.
house. Just bought a tree this week. All sorts of things. I haven't planted the tree. The tree is sitting in the front yard. I got to plant it tomorrow.
What scale is it?
Full scale. It is a full scale live tree that I'm mildly terrified I'm gonna kill over the summer, but we'll see.
Lionel, I have to interrupt here. Pardon me, Justin. How much are we paying you that you're buying trees?
Yeah, really.
I think I need to get Kevin on the phone in the morning and
yeah.
What do you think, Harry? Get a little salary adjustment.
I think so. Yeah,
I want to buy a tree. How about you?
I want to.
It's if I put a garden railroad around it, it's suddenly scenery material, and I can charge the company for that.
Well, actually,
I kept the receipt of the tree.
Well, if you kept the receipt and you have a good tax account,
if you itemize with your accountant, sure. Yeah.
If I end up in jail because of this.
Don't take tax
fraud.
advice. Yeah, tax advice from us is questionable, like the shrimp, probably.
I think it's more questionable than the shrimp. At least the shrimp, we know what is going on.
Yeah, I think we've hit a bit of a nerve here. Some employees have trees and other ones don't.
Yeah.
But then again, Otto bought a new house not that long ago, so
It's an HO scale house from Bachman. Okay, let's get that straight.
Yeah.
Were there any trees? Are there any trees on the property?
Yeah, no, some of us can't afford trees like Justin, Mr. Moneybags. Mr. Montana Moneybags.
Well, there's so many trees in Montana. That's why it was very
well, the important question everybody's dying to know now is what kind of tree is it?
That's a great question. I believe it's a crabapple tree. I didn't pick the tree. My wife picked the tree. But I got to plant it tomorrow.
Interesting.
So you said that was a great question. Already, have we run into a problem where some of the early questions not that interesting? Or?
No, I thought every question was great. I just thought that was an exceptional question.
Yeah. What kind of tree is it? If you could be a tree, what kind of tree would you be? Okay. I think you know what, Bruce?
It was an exceptional question. So.
Yeah. Maybe we'll just make this a segment. We'll look at that. We've run out of time.
Look, we're out of time. Yeah.
I can come back.
We need to get next time.
I can come back next week and
when two of our three guests will be back.
Yeah, I think we'll have moved by then, Justin. And okay, so Justin, you are an associate editor at RMC.
Yep, I am an associate editor at RMC and Rail Fan at Railroad.
Okay, we're gonna
time between both of them.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Here's another guy you can put your request into, Lionel.
Is it time now, Otto, or should I save that for later in the show?
Why don't we just get it over with?
All right, Justin. I'm sure you've listened to the podcast, probably all of the podcasts, and many of them twice. But in case you've forgotten,
2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
Yes.
In case you've forgotten, I have this great idea for Rail Fan and Railroad. And I think
lay it on me. Let's hear it.
Me personally, sometimes I forget if it's Railroad and Rail Fan or Rail Fan and Railroad, blah, blah, blah. And one night, I don't know, maybe like 4 or 5 years ago, I sat bolt upright in bed and I had this great idea. And I said, the first person I got to tell is Otto, because at that time he was an associate editor at Rail Fan and Railroad. And I said, Otto, what about this? in January, every month you alternate. Like January is rail fan and railroad. February is railroad and rail fan. March is rail fan and railroad. And you just alternate every other month. And then you're technically, somebody like me would never be wrong. It's always one or the other. It's either railroad and rail fan or rail fan and railroad. What do you think of that?
I think it's a brilliant idea. I think it's a good way to spread our market coverage. I think. Wow,
I have found an ally here, Bruce.
Justin, I'll have you and Lionel can work on that. Get a meeting with Kevin to run that up the flagpole.
Outstanding.
So we've mentioned the name Kevin a couple of times. The Kevin we speak of is, of course, Kevin Udaly, who is the owner and publisher of RMC and White River Productions, which is the parent company of Railroad Model Craftsman.
Correct. And the benevolent overlord who signed our paychecks. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I wonder how
thanks, Kevin.
I wonder how I ended up as an evil overlord, and he's a benevolent overlord. Now let's move along. Kevin, we'll come back to you. Or Justin. Can I call you Kevin?
You can. Kevin once tracked me down in the Utah desert. Fun fact.
That was amazing.
Really?
Yeah.
That's a little scary.
It was about 2 months after I was hired on at Railfan and RMC, and I was in rural eastern Utah or western Colorado. I can't remember exactly where, along the Deseret Railway, which is an electric railroad that brings coal from a mine in Colorado to a power plant in Utah. And we're standing on this hillside, no one for miles and miles around, waiting for this train to show up. And this big Hummer with Texas plates pulls up. And I'm like, that's got to be a rail fan, because who else would be here? And guy pops out. And this was literally 2 months after starting at the magazines. And this is the first time I had taken any time off during the week. And guy pops out and says, "Are you Justin Franz?" And I say, "Yes." And he's like, "I'm Kevin Udaly. I'm your boss." And I literally thought he was tracking me down because I hadn't shown up to work on a Monday. But it turns out he was very nice and that he was also rail fanning that morning. So I was relieved to find that out.
And why would he think you were Justin Franz? Like, had you posted it somewhere or something? Like, that's an odd question to get out of your Hummer and ask somebody.
I have no clue. I think maybe he'd seen a picture of me in the magazine a month ago.
Okay.
I think that's it.
That's right. I remember that the month you were hired, it was they had you featured on the cover.
I mean, Justin, previously you had done a telephone interview with Kevin and Nadine, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, no, I had done a telephone interview with them. But yeah. Then for a hot second, though, I was like, wow, they're really serious about showing up on Mondays.
Yeah.
I was petrified.
I'm kind of concerned that you'd only worked there 2 months and you're already taking a day off.
Well, I was rail fanning, and the name of the magazine is Rail Fan.
Okay. I see where we're going here. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And then you're taking this Monday off coming because you got to plant a tree.
Exactly.
Are you going to call the tree railroad?
Which is I'm crafting the lawn, therefore craftsman, so therefore that's fine.
Okay. I got you now.
Yeah.
Or as we call it, the Monday excuse.
Yeah, the Monday. Yeah.
The Monday excuse. Yeah, absolutely.
So, Harry, do you live anywhere near the Canadian border?
Not for about 1,000 miles, I'd say. So
we say that's a no then?
Yeah, I guess that would probably be a no. I mean, in relation to, let's say, Bangladesh, yeah, I'm pretty close to the Canadian border.
How about in relation?
Brazil? Yeah, I'm pretty close to the Canadian border for sure. Oh yeah.
All right. So whereabouts in the lower 48 do you live? And with you,
Northern California.
We're going to do it a little different with you. We'll need an exact address, postal code, phone number.
All right. Yeah. Well, 123 Center Street, Anytown, USA.
Yeah. So Northern California.
Yeah. Not Southern California.
Okay.
This is the California where all the tourists come and have to buy sweaters and jackets and clothes because they think they're going to have an 80-degree day out on the beach when it's really about a 20-mile-per-hour westward wind and about 60 degrees outside, or 50.
Okay, so are you
less.
Are you like in Mount Shasta?
No. San Francisco Bay Area to be a little bit more precise.
Oh, okay. Do they call that
a little bit?
Do they call that Northern California?
Yeah, that's still considered north. Yep.
Oh, okay. I see. I would have considered that kind of mid California.
No, well, it depends where you are, but typically things from, I think it's probably around Bakersfield on south would be considered Southern California for most folks.
Okay, Bakersfield. I don't suppose you have ever met Buck Owens and the Buckaroos, have you?
Yeah.
Generally, no. Usually when I go through town, we just head toward Edison Highway and go look for trains.
So have you been in that area most of your life, or did you move from, say,
Anywhere else?
like Vermont, and you went to school?
No, I wasn't born in Vermont. I was pretty much born in the Bay Area here, and I grew up here. We moved from town to town as my parents had different business ventures and things like that. So, but generally speaking, it's within this 60-mile area, metropolitan area.
Okay, and how long have you been with Railroad Model?
When Stephen Priest was the editor, he needed an assistant editor, and he called me up one day, and I was on vacation with my previous employment, and then once Stephen found out that we were out on the beach somewhere, he says, "Well, I'll give you a call back. When are you back? Next Tuesday." I said, "Okay, great. I'll give you a call Tuesday." And so I got a call from him on Tuesday, and here I am.
Okay.
So I'd say probably about 5 years. Yeah.
All right. So you've been with.
Can't count anymore.
Mm-hmm. And are you just an associate editor for RMC, or are you also?
Yeah. I'm an associate editor.
But so are you also? But like Justin works for both magazines. Do you just work for RMC, or?
Yeah, I focus on RMC. I focus on Craftsman. I focus on the little trains.
Okay. So you really have no opinion one way or the other about the railroad thing alternating months?
I remember when when I was a kid, Railfan was a separate magazine from Railroad Magazine. And then one day, Railroad Magazine became part of Railfan. So.
Okay. But you're kind of
That's what I can say about that.
Yeah, you're kind of avoiding the question. So you really have.
Am I?
Yeah. Well, do you have an opinion about my idea? Or?
Yeah, no. It's like when you walk into a Target or, and sometimes you look at the candy stand or the candy aisle, and they have all these different labels on top of the Snickers bars. So I guess it could be like that.
Yeah, I guess so.
It's been done.
So really, you've given me another idea to pitch towards Otto.
It's been done. Not in the railroad, rail enthusiast publication genre, but it's been done out in the candy world.
Right. Exactly.
I've got an idea. Since we're coming up on the anniversary of Railroad Model Craftsman turning 90 next year, we could go back to that brief moment of time when the magazine was Model Railroad Craftsman and really confuse people.
Well, there you go. Perfect.
Hey, people still send me emails about Model Railroad Craftsman all the time.
There you go. Is this turning into like a meeting now? This is like turning into a staff meeting. So go ahead.
I was going to say, Justin, can you proof that story? And Harry, when Lionel's not talking to you, I need you to check that product review, please. And Bruce, I need you to liven it up a little bit. Yeah.
All right.
So
let's liven it up. But wasn't the magazine originally the Model Craftsman?
Why, yes, Bruce, it was. In 1933, it started as the Model Craftsman, a home workshop magazine. And in 1948, it became Railroad Model Craftsman.
In 1948. So was that, and the NMRA started in what year?
34, 33?
So
35.
the
NMRA was 35.
Yep.
So the history, the absolute seed of today's RMC was started a couple of years before NMRA.
We predate the NMRA by 2 years. We predate Model Railroader by 1 year.
Yeah.
Okay. This Model Railroader you speak of. So, anyways, Otto, how long have you been with White River Productions?
Since they purchased the two magazines in 2014.
Oh, really? And how long have you been with RMC?
My first issue as editor was May 2019 for Railroad Model Craftsman. And before that, I actually started working with Carson's Publications, and I was associate editor for Railfan and Railroad going back to 2010.
So you got like a 12-year history with the Karsten / White River Productions. You have a 12-year history with these guys.
Yeah, hoping to make it a baker's dozen. Let's see how it goes.
Yeah, exactly. That's very cool. But that's kind of important. So I want to get to my favorite part of this story. While we're establishing where everybody's spot on the ladder here is, I'm working towards my favorite part of the story. But when was the first time you were published in the Karsten's magazine?
I think that was August 2000, and I had a feature about the history of the Rochester subway, which was a trolley subway here in Rochester, New York. And I also accompanied it with a track plan and how you might model the subway, which also connected to all the freight railroads in town, kind of like a belt line. And that was my first article published in a national magazine.
I have a great question for you, and I'm not sure if I should ask it now. I think I will. You must be kind of pinching yourself, because I'm assuming just like myself and like Bruce, and I'm going to assume, Justin, the first time you were ever published in a model railroad or railroad magazine, it was pretty much of a thrill.
Oh, absolutely. No, it was a huge thrill. First time I was published. I think I was pretty young. I think it was in Rail Pace in like 1998 or 1999.
Oh, really? How old would you have been then? Mm-hmm. You remember?
10 or 11.
Really?
Yeah.
Seriously? Like, what was it, a photo or something?
Yeah, I think it was a picture of a steam excursion in Maine on one of the Maine 2-footers.
Wow.
I started doing railroad photography when I was super young. My dad and uncles are all rail fans, and when I was growing up, I would go rail fan with my dad. And when I was 6 or 7, he just put a camera in my hand, and I just started taking a lot of pictures. So yeah. I've been in it a long time. I've been doomed from the start.
Right, but I mean, so the first time you saw your name being published, it must have been just like a huge thrill, because I know it was for me when I was first published.
Absolutely, huge thrill, and it put me on the path to becoming a journalist and going to journalism school. So yeah, absolutely.
Perfect. And Harry, when was the first time you were published in a model railroad or railroad publication?
I'd have to think it's probably about 1983 or 82, probably 83 or 82. A bunch of us, we all railfan together in the East Bay of the Bay Area, and we sent in our railfan sightings into the magazine known as CTC Board. That's still published as an annual through WRP. And they had a column for each railroad's happenings in the local area in California. So, some of the more interesting sightings showed up in the publication, and we got our names credited. It's like, wow, I got my name in CTC. Check this out. You walk into your hobby shop, and you just yank out the latest issue, and there's your name right in there on page 7.
It's so cool.
That was wild.
And you walk up to you walk up to the cashier with like 12 issues under your 12 copies under your arm and say, I'll buy them
Pretty
all.
much, yeah. Pretty much, yeah.
So Otto,
they're only 50 cents then.
Yeah, exactly. So Otto, so your first article was published in, you said 2000?
August 2000, yep.
And now you're the editor of RMC. Can you put into words? Can you remember how excited you were to have your first article published and see your first article published? And now you're the editor of the magazine. It's your life, it's your livelihood. It's what you do for a job every day. Like, is there any way to put into words the feeling of pride or excitement or exhilaration you have realizing the journey from the first published article to where you are today?
Honestly, no. It's hard to find the words. And I wake up every morning with that same excitement. I'm incredibly lucky to have this opportunity, not only to work with my friends, to do something I enjoy, to work with, other like-minded people, and in a way to kind of encourage the next generation of hobbyists. It's beyond exciting. And I remember when I was a little kid and I grew up reading Model Railroader in my elementary school library. And then the day the librarian told me that I could take home the old copies when they were done with them. I mean, this was amazing. And, also reading Model Railroader, I had no idea that there were publications about trains. And I think I was maybe even 12 or 13 before I met someone else my age who also, or anyone else who liked trains. I didn't have access to information like we do now. But, growing up reading those magazines, it actually sparked my interest in magazines in general. I'm like, I'd like to work for a magazine. I got used to the magazines are about a rhythm, right? There's a rhythm and a schedule and a reliability. And you get to know, especially our hobby magazines, you get to know your favorite columnists and authors and the editor. And you don't know them personally, but you get to know them through their work. And if there's a, editorial column, you get to understand some of their feelings. And I think over time, you get enveloped in all of that. And that appealed to me. And even when I was in high school, I had started my own class newspaper. I think I started in junior high even. And in high school, I worked for, our school paper. I've always been interested in publications. And in the back of my mind, I always hoped maybe there's a way I can combine my interest in the hobby and, maybe someday I'll work for Model Railroader. Wouldn't that be a trip? And as the years went on, I went and got a degree in graphic design, always kept publications at the front of my interest. I worked we did a weekly magazine at Rochester Institute of Technology where I went to school. You want to talk about deadlines, never mind monthly. Doing a weekly 32-page magazine was pretty intense on a student schedule. So that was a lot of fun. I worked for other magazines before I came to Karsten's, fulfilling that interest in getting to work for a magazine and being part of a team and having that schedule and just, putting your personality into what you're doing. And it was just by chance that I had my first piece published in Railroad Model Craftsman and developing a relationship with the editors there. At the time, it was Bill Schomburg and Chris D'Amato and Jim Ankrum. And it's funny because they were the longest serving editorial team at the magazine. They were there for more than 30 years, the same editorial team. And, over the years, had some interest in working at Kalmbach and sometimes opportunities came up and it wasn't right. And, two ships passing in the night, whatever, the opportunity came up at Karsten's. I was doing a bunch of freelance work for him at the time. The opportunity came to join the staff of Railfan and Railroad, and I jumped at it. And at the time in 2010, I'm like, all right, this is great. I'm in the industry. I'm working for a railroad magazine. It's not the modeling side, but this is still cool. I'm really excited to be here. And I thought, all right, this is it. And then, we went through the transition to White River. And, when Stephen Priest announced he was leaving, I told Kevin I wanted to be involved in RMC, maybe as an associate editor, maybe get my foot in the door. And, in the end, it turned out that they were willing to have me work on both magazines. And I was able to become editor of Railroad Model Craftsman. And it absolutely blew my mind. And I think we talked about this during the 6-part epic Tony Custer interview. Growing up reading Tony Custer's work and then having Tony Custer as a colleague in the industry. And now I have the same job that Tony Custer once had when he was editor of Railroad Model Craftsman. Blows my mind. And I still enjoy it every day. And I'm really glad to be here. And I'm really glad to work with Harry. And I'm really glad to work with Justin. And we really, I think together we're bringing a new voice to this publication. It's something that's always evolving and growing, and I'm just stupid excited to be part of it. So,
okay. So for Justin and Harry's benefit, and Bruce has heard this story before, and many of the listeners have heard this story before. But the screen will go kind of wavy now, and let's take a trip back to standing beside a pillar in the Better Living Center at the Springfield. I believe it was 2018 show. 2018 or 2019, I forget.
It was the 2019 show.
19.
19. And oddly enough, there's as the screen starts to focus in, there's two people standing beside this one particular steel pillar in the building.
Pillar 68, yes.
Pillar 68, yes. That's what we'll call this episode, Pillar 68.
Pillar 68, beautiful.
And it turns out the two people are you and me, Otto von Drack and the evil overlord, Lionel Sprague.
Oh, let's reenact that scene, Lionel.
Yeah. And we're standing there talking, and I say to you, you know who should be the editor of Railroad Model Craftsman, don't you?
No, who, Lionel?
You're the only guy that should be the editor of Railroad Model Craftsman. It's you. You're the guy. You need to stick your nose in there and make it known that you want to be the editor. Because
I don't know, Lionel. They didn't seem very interested when I talked to Kevin at first, and I don't know. I don't think I'm the right fit.
I'm telling you, Otto. I'm telling you, buddy. You are the guy. I'm telling you right now. Absolutely, you got to be the guy. Whatever you got to do, you got to get in there.
It's real nice of you to say, Lionel, but I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Oh, look, there's somebody else I know. Sorry, Otto, got to go.
I'm a little teary-eyed hearing that again. But
yeah, it is exactly.
It's very good.
I'm going to get back to that, but yeah, I'm very proud of myself that I was like, I think I nailed that. I wish there was some place in Vegas I could have bet on that. I would have made a mint. Although, yeah, I didn't really see you as a long shot. I saw you as the guy. I thought you were a perfect fit. You already worked for White River. You seemed like you could spell. So I thought, okay, and you had some sort of understanding of punctuation. So I thought, this has got to be the guy. And you had the enthusiasm, which was number one. You gotta have. I got a great question for all you guys, and we'll get to it. But you gotta have the enthusiasm. So, Justin, tell me what it feels like for you. You think back to you had that first photo published when you were just a wee lad, and now here you are. You're entering your third year as an associate editor for RMC. Like, can you put into words what that means to you?
It's really unbelievable. I graduated college in 2011, and print media was not in a good shape in 2011. And
Justin, can I interrupt? Can I interrupt?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
This is the funny story about hiring Justin is that I made a pitch to Justin maybe 5 years ago. We were actually hanging out in Portland, Oregon together after the Winter Rail show. And I'm like, Justin, I could use a young guy like you on staff. We could really use a voice like yours, rail fan and railroad. Love to bring you on board. And Justin, what did you say? What did you say back then and 5 years ago? How did it go?
I don't think I thought you were serious.
That's fair.
I didn't think you were actually serious. I think working for a railroad magazine, be it RMC or Railfan or MR or Trains, was always a dream of mine. And it's one of the reasons why I went to journalism school, is because I wanted to work for a railroad magazine or a model railroad magazine. And I graduated in 2011. Got a job at a newspaper, and it was a great job. It was a super fun job, and I was happy. And, on the side, when still working at the newspaper, I got to write for Railfan Railroad and Trains magazine. And I thought, getting to be a freelancer in that regard sort of scratched that itch. And then in early 2020, I was looking at leaving the newspaper. I'd been there for 9 years, had been covering cops and courts and city council and all that type of stuff, and wanted to do something different, and was thinking about just doing freelance, and reached out to Otto, and I said, hey, I'm thinking of leaving the paper and just being a freelance writer. If you ever need anyone, for 10 hours a week or something, just let me know. And Otto said, how about 40? And once again, I thought he was joking, but this time he wasn't. And I jumped at the opportunity.
Justin called me I had just hung up with Kevin. I left a voicemail for him because I just got done my first year juggling Railroad Model Craftsman and Railfan and Railroad. And, the staff of Railfan is just Steve Berry and myself. The staff of Railroad Model Craftsman is myself and Harry, and also our designer, Todd Gillette. But, I was still managing all the columns, all the news, for both Railfan. Harry's handling the front of the book, all the reviews and new products, but there was still just a lot of work and it was a lot to take on. I said, Kevin, we need to bring someone on, give me a call back. Let's talk about ways we can do that. I hang up. Justin calls me because he had just filed a story for Railfan and he casually throws in, hey, if you ever have any freelance editing opportunities, and I'm like, how about all the editing opportunities? Because I need you right now.
I immediately regret saying that.
But we're able to make a business case, to where Justin splits his time between the two magazines, 50-50 as associate editor on both publications, and it just worked out tremendously. But it was, I swear, it was serendipity that literally Justin called right after I hung up with Kevin, like begging for more help. So.
And it's been a blast because I think, getting to look at publications from a different level, and instead of just the words and the pictures, but sort of, as Otto was saying a few minutes ago, flow of a magazine has been super fun, and I've learned so much, and it's just been a real joy. So yeah, I pinch myself every day.
How did Harry get involved in the whole publishing shindig now?
We're getting to that. We're getting to that. Don't you notice there's like a pattern here? Like I kind of work through the questions and then I work back, and we're getting to that. But just before we do, it's an excellent question, Bruce. But just before we do, a little back to Pillar 68. You may not. I'm sure Otto hasn't told you this because he's the boss and he wants to be bossly. He wants to feel. He wants to be. He's in charge. He wants everybody to feel like he's in control. But as I turned away from Otto to start going back into the show, I turned back for just a second and I said, "And that Franz kid, you got to get him on board." And then I said, Harry.
Yep.
So how did you got hired on to RMC by Stephen Priest?
Right, but I had already been working with Tony Cook over at Model Railroad News.
Yeah, he's trouble, that guy.
Yeah, he called me up or he sent me a couple of emails because I was on a trainorders.com, one of these, online, another train discussion board. And I posted a lot of images there of new products and things, and whenever I went to trade shows and stuff, and for a while there I went to, the National Train Show and the various railroad prototype modeler meets out on the West Coast. And what I used to do, and just on my own, was I'd take my digital camera because, electrons are cheap. And I'd take pictures of all the models that I saw. And the reason why I did that was that I could then enjoy them later, as opposed to just for a couple of hours at the meet. Oh, I saw something really cool. I saw somebody kit bash this Baldwin switcher and for USS Steel, and I'd never seen anything like that. But he did some crazy detail on the pilots or something, and multiply that by a couple of hundred times at a prototype modelers meet, and you're kind of like breathing out of a fire hose. But then I kind of said, you know what? I'll just take these pictures and bring them home and check them out myself. But then I thought to myself, why don't I just share the images with everybody? And so I posted albums up on the web and stuck the URLs out there for people. People started noticing them and enjoying the photos. So I kind of thought, oh, that was kind of neat. Well, gee, people actually like my pictures. Well, that's kind of cool, And after a while, people kind of came to think of me as the person taking all the pictures at all the meets. And I guess that's when Tony got a hold of me and says, hey, you want to go write a review for one of these new products? I can just send you the product, and if you write the review, you get to keep it. And I get to keep it? So I drafted up a few things and sent them over to Tony, and he liked it, and or liked it enough to get it published, and multiply that by, 50 or 100 times, and here I am.
That's it.
Yep.
So, what is the feel? So, have you been a lifelong model railroader?
Yeah, I'd have to say so. We grew up. I did not grow up within sight of the tracks or anything like that at all. But there used to be a department store in the town where I grew up, and it looked straight out onto the main line of the Western Pacific and the Southern Pacific. So that's a hint for some of you guys. But when I looked, yeah, and so I'd hang out in I guess there was like the garden department where all the plants are and stuff, and kind of like a Target today, right? And except they had these giant plate glass windows, and the plate glass windows looked right out onto the Western Pacific tracks. And you could see the grade crossing when it started to flash. And so once the grade crossing started to flash, I just plastered myself up against the window and watched whatever rolled by. That kind of got me hooked, I'd have to say. So yeah, that's pretty much where I got my start. One winter day, or Christmas shopping, they actually had a train counter inside this department store, which was unbelievable. And they had Athearn products, which is even more unbelievable. And my dad asked me, "So which one do you want for Christmas?" They had a Western Pacific U30B, and they had a Southern Pacific SD45. The paint schemes didn't really matter that much to me, but one locomotive was 4-axle, and the other one was a 6-axle. Well, if I had one choice, of course I'd choose the 6-axle. So
of course,
that's pretty much how I got to become an SP guy, fan. But to cement that, that's not all. But to cement that, we moved to another town.
You moved to Stockton.
No, we did not move to Stockton Tower. No.
Santa Rosa?
No. Just a couple of towns over from where the Western Pacific terminated. And it just so happens that the place where we moved to is 2.5 blocks from the Southern Pacific Main Line, the overland route that goes from Oakland to, back east, Ogden and points further east than that. So,
okay.
So we moved there, and the house had a bay window on the second story, and the bay window looked out onto the tracks, which is about 2 blocks away. And as a young 5-year-old kid, the train horns would blare all day, and I'd run straight to that window to see what it was. What was it that went by? And once my dad bought me a set of binoculars, it was all over, and I started writing down locomotive numbers, and somebody bought me a spotter's guide, and well, here I am.
So do you get the sense, do you have the same thrill that Otto and Justin do of, holy cow, I'm writing for, I'm in the railroad journalism, and I'm writing for RMC?
Yeah, I'd have to say my first train magazine, and this sounds really campy, but it's true. It was an issue of RMC. My brother, who had served in the armed forces, came home from leave one day, and he brought me a train set. And I'd have to say he must have gone to MB Klein's or something, because he was stationed around Baltimore. And all the stuff he brought home was quality stuff. It was an MRC power pack. It was Atlas track, Athearn locomotives and freight cars. And I didn't have the usual stuff that most people started out with back then. So, and there was a copy of RMC to go with it. What drew me in, I think, or what excites me about working for the magazine is this. Once I started getting into the hobby, I always had a longing for whatever the new products were. Because what I had already didn't really satisfy me. How come somebody doesn't build a XYZ? Or why doesn't somebody come out with an SD45 tunnel motor or something? I can't believe it. We've had the prototype has been running around for 10 years and we still don't have it. And so what excited me back then was my favorite issues were some of the new products issues when RMC went to, I guess the New York Toy Fair was like one of the big things back in the 70s. Right. And they'd have these little teeny tiny pictures of what might be coming from different manufacturers. Oh, look, Lifelike just released their BL2, or well, even further back than that. So I was quite excited about the new products, and pretty much every month I'd run down to my local hobby shop in town, and I'd run downstairs into the basement, and they'd have their news rack of train magazines, and I'd immediately go straight to RMC or MR and look through the new products columns just to see what was new. Today we do it on the net sometimes, but back then that was it. And so that was a big thing. I wouldn't even look at anybody in the eye until I was done looking at the new product columns.
So in other words, if you had the opportunity, say in the latest issue of RMC, to be the guy that reviewed the Athearn Genesis SD70 AC, you'd be like thrilled.
Yeah. Oh, I am every month. You know what's really weird is because in my role, people, manufacturers kind of, send things my way, and oftentimes I don't. It's pretty interesting because sometimes they're really, really great, and they're really super interesting, and they're kind of a surprise to me because it's like, wow, this thing has features I didn't really even expect.
And sometimes they send products to you that you be like, what am I doing with this?
What's the secret to writing a good review then?
I'd have to say just being truthful and putting it in a nice way sometimes. You really have to think about the entire product as how your audience might see it. And your audience can range from folks that are brand new to the hobby to those that have been around since the dawn of time and everywhere in between. And also those that are also experts for the product that you're about to review. And I lean on other folks that may be more knowledgeable than me in certain areas to help fill in the gaps. And sometimes they get to write the entire review, or I just need a little help. And then I'm not afraid to ask other people because I don't know everything. I do know a lot of things, but I focus on a lot of the more Western railroads and that sort of thing. But I'm okay speaking Conrail or CSX. So.
Hey, do you ever go back and forth with the manufacturer? You find something that you think is an issue that they might want to address, or
absolutely
that type of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. And your questions, it can go either way. They can say, well, no, that's pretty much the way it is, and we're not going to fix it. Well, then fine, I'll document it then in the review. Or, oh no, we found a problem, and well, and this is the way to address it. And so we mentioned that in the review as well.
I think that's something that comes up. I mean, Harry and I will have these discussions pretty often. We get together once in a while. We get a product where it's 98% awesome, and then there's one item that's a showstopper. And then Harry and I put our heads together and we're like, how much of a showstopper is this really? Is this just a minor annoyance? Is this something we can deal with? Is this something we go back and address with the manufacturer? Because I've had readers come up to me and be like, oh, you guys are in bed with the manufacturers because you only print good reviews. And I'm like, no, that's exactly the opposite. I give Harry a budget of so many pages to review product each month. Do you want us to waste pages writing about bad products? First of all, that's a waste of space. Second of all, that doesn't help the industry. If there's a product that comes to us and is truly bad and we feel we can't review it in good conscience, we tell the manufacturer, hey, this has some serious flaws. You don't want us reviewing it. We can't review it. Why don't you go back and address some of these issues and we might come back to it, or we just drop it all together. But us writing a bad review serves no one. But it's exactly what Harry said. We take a product, we talk about it honestly. Our reviewers talk about what they see through their eyes, and you may see something different, but you're always getting what the reviewer is seeing with their own eyes.
And obviously you only have, like you say, you only have so much space. So, I mean, is that...
Yeah, but I find myself being able to express myself fairly fully in the space that's given, especially for lead and second reviews. Third reviews tend to be, on products that make a new variation of an existing product or something like that. But even still, we try to be fairly comprehensive about what we have to say about the review, or what we have to say about the product, or what we think is important to know about the product.
I think something important to realize too, just as a little sidebar, everyone out there listening to this podcast, I want you to understand that the people making and manufacturing your model trains are people like you. They are human. Not only are they enthusiasts in the hobby, but they are like you. They're a model railroader. This isn't a job to them. It's their passion. When something does go wrong or something doesn't turn out the way they expect, they know, they're hearing about it. It's already on the internet. People are already saying bad words about them. They're getting a million emails. They're getting phone calls. They know when something goes wrong. And when you don't see a response right away to some perceived issue, you need to take a step back and realize that months or years of production work have gone to this product. It's now finally getting into market. Not everyone is getting the product at the same time. Your best friend in California may have it, and you're in Chicago. You don't have it yet. These things take time to roll out. What might seem like a defect turns out to be a fluke, or maybe now that the product rolls out fully, it turns out there is a defect. Whatever it is, these things don't happen overnight. So when people start getting nasty about our manufacturing, being like, oh, this piece of junk from XYZ company, they didn't even respond to my nasty email. And I even sent a threatening letter to them and a bomb threat to the office, and they still didn't get back to me. And it's like, well, kids, they're learning about whatever when their product goes out into market, they're learning about it in real time, and it's taking time, for them to react. Someone gets a broken coupler in their model, that's an accident. 6 or 7 is an unfortunate occurrence. When all the products ship with a broken coupler, well, that's clearly a factory defect, and they need to find a way to address that. They're taking the time to come up with a response and a way to either get you all new couplers, send it back for warranty work, whatever it is. But again, remember, the people in this hobby, we're all humans together, and it doesn't do any good to be nasty towards those people who are bringing out all these amazing products. I'm asking for a little consideration on all our parts when, this hobby is much different today than it was 10, 15, 20 years ago. The way products are researched, manufactured, Harry will tell you, we're getting variations in product. We're not just getting the Jeep 38. We're getting the Jeep 38 in all the phases with road specific details, with functions we never would have dreamed of even 10 years ago. There's going to be some hiccups in this new manufacturing process, and I think we're seeing less of it as time goes by, because I think our major manufacturers are actually pretty good at getting these new generations of models out. But again, as we're putting more detail parts and more things can go wrong, I'm just asking for a little bit of understanding on our parts as these things roll out into market.
Yeah, that's a very good point, because too many people are keyboard warriors. They open up the latest model from XYZ company and say, oh, the coupler's broken. What a piece of crap. They don't know how to ship, blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden, everybody's hanging on their words of these perceived experts that, XYZ company, they're shipping stuff with broken couplers. I'm going to cancel all my orders and, stuff like that. So,
and let me tell you,
think about it and step back and take some time.
If you think that, it doesn't affect them, I've spoken to every major manufacturer. They all have staff, and they tell me that they have to stay away from the comment sections, the online forums. They have to stay away, because if they start reading that stuff, and it may even represent a minority of the hobby, it destroys them. It completely destroys them emotionally.
Yeah.
Like, no joke. And you think oh, whatever, they can't take it. No, actually, they can't. When you put your life and soul into a product, 100 people can tell you it's great. That one person that tells you it's garbage, you just take it to heart, and you can't get out of bed for the rest of the day. So, you know what? Do what you got to do out there, folks. But at the end of the day, I'm just asking for a little bit of.
I think that's a very good
understanding. Definitely.
I think that's a very good point. Is that you can have 100 positive comments, but you get 1 or 2 really negative ones, and it can suck the life right out of you, which is really what a lot of people are trying to do. And it's pointless. It's absolutely pointless.
Yeah.
Well, and I wanted to say too, and we kind of glossed over this a little bit. When I became editor, I called up everyone on the staff and some of our regular columnists, and tried to take the temperature of how everyone was feeling. And I didn't really want to come in and change a whole bunch of things, because most of the people who were writing for us were there for a reason, and I liked what they were doing. And I remember I called up, Harry, and we had a chat, and I'm like, Harry, I like what you're doing. You have the technical expertise, you have the modeling experience. I think your reviews are in depth and detailed, and unless you see any reason to change anything, I want to keep you on board. I want to keep doing what you're doing. And I think the only thing that we've really changed is how we allocate the page budget. It's the same number of pages for Receiving Yard, which is our new product announcements. And it's the same number of pages for the review section. So Harry knows exactly how much space he has to fill and what he has to work with. And, Harry and I conference each month, and we talk about what kind of mix of reviews we want to have this month. And, we're always on the lookout for new products and new manufacturers. I mean, Harry can tell you, like, how many new manufacturers do we find that just pop up out of nowhere? Like, hey, we have a new structure kit. Hey, we're making 3D printed details.
Yeah,
hey,
it's insane. It's insane. When you grew up in the 70s or the 80s, and this is before a lot of you guys, it's like this. You've got Ather, you've got Roundhouse, you've got Tyco, that's pretty much about it, and Atlas, supplying the track. And those were all your players. Sure, you had, some of the smaller guys doing structures and stuff that you don't hear of anymore that have since gone on, like Sidam and whatnot. But I remember rolling into my shop, every month, and when's there going to be a new freight car? Well, I hear Athearn's working on one, and then 1 year passes, 2 year passes, then the third year something finally shows up. Oh my gosh, they turned out an ACF, a modern ACF boxcar, 50 feet long with non-terminating ends. That's freaking amazing, amazing. But now when you turn around, it's a torrent of product from manufacturers, both big and small. And there's a lot of new manufacturers that did not exist 20 years ago, or 30, certainly not 30 years ago, that we have today that are just turning out just gobsmacking excellent product. Be that a freight car, be that a locomotive, be that a structure.
Harry, you mentioned before.
Stuff.
Harry, you mentioned before about primary, secondary, and tertiary product reviews. How do you decide what's going to go where in the magazine? Because I know you try to feature one or two main reviews and then work your way down through. So how do you decide between you and Otto, decide who gets what billing and what effort goes into it?
I think they all get about the same amount of effort, I'd have to say. When I say tertiary, perhaps I probably put it wrong. I think it's probably more toward a product that would be, let's say, a scenery accessory or something like that, or something of that nature. Something a new control board for your DCC system or something, or signaling. But typically, we have typically a mix of 3 reviews every month. We try to go for a locomotive, we try to go for a freight car typically, and we try to go. The third one is typically a structure or other important accessory that you could use on your layout. So, long story short, I'd have to say, which are the reviews that would give most give our readership? Which review? I'm tongue-tied here. Which review would be the most interesting to our readers, and that typically leads first.
You must just get buried with products, though. I mean, just literally buried. I mean, I know I've talked to Tony Cook, the editor of Model Railroad News. Have you? Are any of you gentlemen familiar with Tony?
Oh yeah. We work with him
from time to time. Yes.
I mean, like, we have a discussion, like he says, like 20, 30 years ago, there would be no Model Railroad News because the news came out once every, Athearn would release a new locomotive once every 2 years, and there'd be a new
5 years.
Yeah.
Well, and you look at Tony's magazine too, Model Railroad News. It's literally the whole thing is product announcements and in-depth reviews, and I'm actually kind of envious of the space he has to dedicate. Right. I mean, we go pretty deep with our reviews as much as we can. What I like about what Tony can do in his magazine is that he has more space. If he's profiling a new locomotive, he'll also profile the prototype history more in depth with prototype photos and really go whole hog and be like, just paint the whole picture. And we just don't have the space to do it. We barely have enough space just to cover the model itself and all the features it has. But it is interesting to look at how much product there is, and even with coming out 12 times a year and the number of pages that Tony has to work with, he still can't fit it all in each month. That's how big this hobby is.
Bruce, can I ask you a question?
Sure, go.
We're about an hour and 10 minutes into this.
Yes.
Have you started to realize what I've started to realize?
That we could go for about another 2 hours and 10 minutes?
No, at least, probably longer than that. Gentlemen, I believe that this will not be your last roundtable on the old AML network.
Yes.
I'm afraid, good news and bad news. This will end at some point tonight, but unfortunately, I will be requesting a return in the future for us to continue these conversations.
I think, if nothing else, I'd like us to return just weekend update on Justin's tree planting.
Yeah, well, exactly. That in itself.
I've actually been working on it while you guys were talking about product reviews.
Yeah.
It was sort of like listening to a podcast.
I thought I heard.
I was listening to it like I listened to the podcast. It's actually really interesting to hear about that side of the, because I deal with the back of the book columns, and Harry's dealing with the front of the book, and so it's actually really interesting to hear about how the product reviews come about, because I usually don't see the product reviews until we're towards the end of the process. For example, tomorrow morning we're sending the magazines to the printer, and I was just reading the reviews this afternoon for the first time, and it's actually really fun to hear about how that end of the magazine comes together, because we're all scattered across the country. It's not like we're in an office and I can pop over to see what Harry's doing. So this is actually really fun.
Which leads me to
we're not all living in Milwaukee or something. Let's just say.
Oh, you're not?
Perish the thought.
Let's face it. You're in Pleasanton, California, right, Harry?
Out that direction. You're close.
I'll get it eventually.
What Harry doesn't realize is that the AML network is slowly triangulating his position.
Yeah,
I know.
exactly.
I gave far too many.
Our mobile detection devices are out there right now.
The longer we keep you
I
talking,
see a drone outside my window.
Yeah.
Is the black van outside your window yet, Harry?
No, I just looked at my Wi-Fi, and it did say something like AML spy van.
Yeah, exactly.
Where Justin lives in Montana, he's used to black helicopters flying over all the time. So
exactly. And they're focusing in on that guy with a tree. Why is that guy planting a forest? What's he hiding? So what? So it's an apple tree.
As long as his name isn't Ted or something.
A crab apple tree.
A crab
apple tree.
And how big is this tree?
Are those crabbier than
blooms
apple
for like
trees?
2 weeks. I believe so. Yeah, you can't eat them.
So
My neighbor.
Oh, that's
my
an
neighbor,
ornamental one.
Mike.
So are you living in Montana? Are you like on some sort of 4,000 acre spread running, several hundred heads of cattle?
Absolutely. No, the magazine's just a side gig. The ranch is the true passion.
Exactly.
Yeah. Are you a dental floss tycoon? The old guys get that one.
I have a question, which is handy because that's kind of what this podcast is about, is asking questions. So where was this? So you're in Great Falls or Columbia Falls? I forget already.
Columbia Falls.
Yeah. Okay, that's right. Just down the road from Alberta.
Yes.
Because you got a job at
Although my wife is from Great Falls.
Well, that's good. That's good. She apparently was quite happy to stay in her home state and go to school there.
Yes. Although I shouldn't say, I do love my home state of Maine. I'm a proud Mainer.
Right.
Always will be a proud maniac.
Okay. Whereabouts in Maine?
I grew up in Augusta.
Okay.
So about 45 minutes an hour north of Portland.
All right, cool. Have you ever been to Pleasanton, California?
No, I have not visited Harry.
Okay. I got a question for you guys. I'm going to start with Harry, and I'll work my way back through the progression. So, Harry, now that you're you're solidly established inside the model railroad journalism world, do you have a sense? I think one of the things that I know I always have, one of the things that fascinates me about this hobby is the history or the sense of, it seems like it's a small hobby, but I don't believe it is. I think this hobby is like way bigger than anybody realizes. And I think over the next 20 years, it's going to grow like crazy because of our ability to access each other now. And which, by the way, doesn't mean I want you guys calling me up for, we're not going to be, you can maybe try friending me on Facebook, but beyond that, any correspondence needs to go through Otto.
Sure.
Do you have a sense of carrying on a tradition? Because I'm one of those guys that, kind of has a sense of, the hobby, the magazines were started in the 30s. The NMRA was started in the 30s. And you look through, I'm sure like everybody here has had look through the magazines of the 40s and the 50s and the 60s. And, do you have a sense of carrying on the tradition of model railroad journalism?
I really never thought of myself as a journalist, but because my background's actually more into software. I mean, I was a computer science major when I graduated out of college, one year, many moons ago. But I'll say this, all the jobs that I've ever had have had a technical writing side to it. Be that a summer job I had at McGraw-Hill 1 year when they were publishing computer manuals, or here's the easy way to learn about your IBM PC or whatever. And all along the way, I found myself doing a lot of writing. So when I was able to combine my true passion, which is really writing, with my vocationally of the vocational side of the passion, with model railroads and trains, my true passion, which I thought of, which I was just basically obsessed with since I was a kid. I thought that was great. So if I could bring that joy and that excitement that I had when I read magazines to others that had that can share in that excitement, or that can hear about the the thing that I'm excited about, that's a great blessing. I think as far as a tradition, I'm not sure if I thought about it that way. I always looked up to all the famous names like Tony Custer and Jim Hediger and lots of Jim Boyd and on the rail fanning side and so forth. I always looked up to their names, and I never thought of myself as an equal or even as a peer in any sort of way, because I considered them my elders, my elders and my forefathers in this industry. So for me, and let's say Otto too, I think, for us to take on that role is like, wow, really? Are you kidding? We're the ones now? Okay. Well, let's do our best.
It is weird.
What we're trying to do.
It's very weird.
I don't think of myself as like, well, I'm Tony's successor or anything like that.
No, I understand that, but
it's just different. We just kind of do what we can and do our best. And I put the joy into my right. I try to share the exciting things that the things that I find exciting about certain products, and the things that I feel that could be improved. I share that too. So
well, it means something to me to have had established myself in the model railroad press through Kalmbach, but now recently I've written a couple of little articles for Tony in Model Railroad News, and there's something coming up in the next issue of RMC, just a very small 500 words, but it's really cool to be part of this fraternity almost, I think, or something. It feels like it's important, I guess, to be part of it, I guess.
Yeah. I think what blew my mind was the first time I saw my name and the title of an article I wrote referenced in a book somewhere. And I'm like, hold up, you're relying on me as a source? But I mean, joking aside, it was very humbling. I'm like, wow, the things I'm publishing and putting out there, people are picking up and are becoming sources for other people's work. And it's all part of that fabric that we're all weaving together.
Justin, I'm assuming.
I think.
Hang on, I'm still talking, buddy. Here's the number one rule. Now that you're going to probably be on the AML podcast, the AML network, several times over the future. Don't annoy the host. It never works. It just doesn't work. It's a path that you can take, but it just doesn't work.
Rule number 2: never be funnier than the host.
Yeah. By the way, Justin, just before we go on, it's exactly as the crow flies, 42 miles from where you are to the Canadian border.
See, you learn something new every day.
Yeah. So in case you ever wanted to, go, what you decided you wanted to hike due north to the Canadian border, it's 42 miles. So how old are you?
I've
Justin?
actually been to that point of the Canadian border. It's pretty remote. I am 34.
Okay. So, all right. You're the youngest guy here. Do you get a sense of that
Yeah, absolutely. No, I am definitely a magazine geek. I grew up reading RMC and MR and Trains and Railfan from when I was knee high to a grasshopper, and always looked up to the names that were in those publications. And I definitely do feel I feel honored to be able to carry on or help carry on these publications into the future. Next RMC turns 90. 2 years from now, Railfan Railroad turns 50, and I think it's such an honor to be able to try and help maintain these titles and hopefully help them grow. Because even though we're in the internet age, these magazines, these publications really are sort of the keepers of our hobbies culture, be it on the modeling side or the Railfan side. People are talking on message boards online all the time, but that history of the hobby isn't being kept on those message boards unless someone is printing them off and keeping them in their basement or something. The history of the hobby and all that is being kept in these publications. And even in an era where digital media is really taking a bigger chunk of the readership, I do think there is a place for publications that are nimble and respond to the wants and the desires and the needs of their readers to really thrive. And I think RMC and Railfan do that.
Oh, for sure.
Month, hopefully. And I think if we don't, our readers let us know and we adjust.
Yeah, exactly. And just carrying on the tradition, I mean, to me, it's a huge deal for me. I mean, to have been part of it, because really the number of people that have had the opportunity to be regular contributors to the hobby like you are now, and the people that have been in the hobby, I mean, it's a pretty small percentage. So it's a kind of a big deal to do it right. And to realize it.
Absolutely.
I guess that's...
Yeah, you kind of think about the number of folks that are in actual model road publishing or model road media, be that digital or be that print or both. And it's an extremely small number. And it's a pretty small club, I'd have to say. But, I just love sharing what I'm doing. So
yeah, it's very cool. All right.
I love sharing the good news about, whatever it is that just came out. I think that's my joy that I like to share, because it's like, oh, look, somebody just turned out an SD, this and that. This new -9 44CW, but it's for BC Rail. Hey, nobody's ever done that one.
Yeah, exactly.
That sort of thing.
Exactly. It is very cool. And you said you work in the back of the magazine, Justin?
Yeah, so I cover, I guess the back of the magazine being the columns that appear towards the end of the magazine. So that's company photographer, crafts and workshop, painting and weathering. Those are the columns that I manage from month to month.
How about the new column that you started?
Oh, and the new column that we started.
Did you do it? Did you do it this month, or did you forget?
I need to be right back. Otto, don't send it to the printer yet. No, we've got a great column from a regular contributor, Scott Thornton, about building a layout on a shelf. I think, you look in the hobby press in the last, or the model railroad press in the last 30 or 40 or 50 years, so many layouts that get all the attention are the big basement empires. And I think more and more people are turning toward shelf layouts and layouts that can fit in a small space. I myself am doing a shelf layout just because it's easier to handle and something that's more, something that's more achievable. Maybe I can finish it in my lifetime. And so we are now doing every other month. We're following Scott on his journey as he models an Iowa interstate branch line. And we go from bench work to scenery to track laying, the whole 9 yards. And we're gonna follow his journey as he builds this layout on a shelf. And we talk about how he, takes this prototypical branch, which is I think 7 or 8 miles, and condenses it down into, basically small layout against 2 walls, and what scenes he picked, what industries he picked. And so that's something that we came up with about a year ago. We started publishing in the January issue, and it's great because, again, like I said a few minutes ago, I think magazines that respond to the needs and the desires and the wants of their readers are going to do really well. And I think a lot of the people I talk to are doing shelf layouts, and so we want to try and highlight that.
That's a whole cool discussion, actually.
It is too. Yes.
I've made a note. I have a series of notes here. You guys are going to be like...
I'm just looking at Justin's layout in the latest issue, and that looks like it's going to be a fun little layout to get up and going.
Where's Justin's layout in the latest issue?
It's in the editor's notebook.
Oh, okay. Is it? All right. Well, I'm looking at the latest issue. What page is the editor's notebook on?
91.
Oh, what is the editor's notebook way down back there? Shouldn't it be up at front? Shouldn't you be like be on the top, on the cover there?
Hey, Otto. Seeing as you're the editor, can you handle that question?
One of the things I did when I took over as editor is I put editor's notebook back in the back of the book as kind of the bookend to the whole experience. That's where it was when I was reading Railroad Model Craftsman in the 90s. And it's always been a catch-all for editors to talk about some trip they went on or some thought about some behind the scenes working on one of the articles that month. And it just makes sense to me. It's you've read the whole magazine. We're going to give you some parting thoughts, and then we'll see you next month. It's when I made that change, there was a few people who wrote in. They said, "Well, you should be right up front. You should be telling us. We want to hear from you first." And I'm like, the last thing I want to do in this publication is put me first. I want to put our readers first. I want to put our new products first. I want to put the hobby first. I'm the facilitator. I'm the observer, but I don't need to be up front. You don't need to see me first. That's not why I buy the magazine. So that was a very conscious decision to have it as the sign off instead.
That's the only reason I buy the magazine is because you're the editor.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Hey, what about us?
Now shut up, you guys. Get back.
Hey.
Quiet, the green room.
Quiet. This is Otto's time. You're
Yeah. Maybe because of Justin, but you, Harry, not so much.
Hey.
Well, and it's funny. One of the reasons I approached Lionel about this is actually the first time all three of us have gotten together anywhere. We all live in different parts of the country. This is actually the first time we've all gotten together to have a discussion like this, and we appreciate you giving us the time, Lionel.
Yeah, it's like, it's great.
Yeah, I can't believe
it's a rare occasion.
Yeah, I can't believe you agreed to how much I demanded. Okay, so all right. So now I want to ask you. This is a very cool layout, Justin. I see what you're doing.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Who's the guy in the picture?
That's a good buddy of mine, James House.
Okay.
The dispatcher from Montana Railing, longtime buddy, and he helped build the bench work. He was very instrumental in getting me to build the bench work. I kept saying like, my wife and I bought this house a year and a half ago, and we had this little room off the laundry room, and it's like, that'd be a great spot for a layout. And he kept saying like, when am I going to come up and build the bench work? And I was like, sometime soon. And then he was like, 2 weeks from now, I'm coming up and we're building bench work. And I was like, okay, let's do it. And that was over a year ago now. And we got the bench work done and got some track down last winter. And then to me, modeling is always a winter activity. In the summer, there's always so much to do in Montana. Go hiking, go rail fanning, that type of stuff. But in winter, I really get the bug for modeling, and so the layout went to hibernation last summer, and then this winter it came back out and finished the track and got started on a little bit of scenery, and it's been a blast to work on, and it's been really cool. And for me, I know some people always think that rail fanning and model railroading are two very different things. I look at them as one hobby, as one passion. And for me, this layout is an opportunity to recreate the railroading that I saw as a kid. I grew up in central Maine, rail fanning on little lightly used branch lines. And this gives me a chance to sort of recreate those childhood memories of following, Guilford Rail System locals through central Maine. For me, it's a little time machine in the basement.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, I'm looking at the plan now, and the cool thing is it's 11 feet by 7 feet. It's L-shaped. But I mean, the cool thing is if you were to get that to a point where you considered it finished, it would be really neat to have. It would be, but I mean, there's a lot of work just involved just to get to that point.
Oh, absolutely.
There's a lot I agree with you 100%. There's a lot to be had. And Scott Thornton's a modeler he's an exquisite modeler. And I mean, what he's doing is just unbelievable, and it's going to be a great series. But his layout isn't necessarily small. I would call it medium sized.
Sure.
And I mean, there's a lot of fun to be had in a medium sized layout. And if you manage to finish one of those, you've done something.
Absolutely.
And I think some of this also,
I think you can.
I was going to say, I think some of this came about in reaction to, we had a columnist once who said, either go big or go home, only big layouts, huge layouts, expansive layouts, basement empires, nothing else matters. And Justin and I kind of looked at each other and we're like, here's 6 months of small layouts, because you know what? We felt that was very exclusionary. I admire the people who build the large layouts in the basement empires.
Absolutely.
They're incredible accomplishments. Not everyone has that ability. Not everyone has the resources to do it. And when you tell someone like it's big or nothing, you just wiped out 3/4 of the population or more. And I also want to make sure that we run a balance of large layouts, small layouts, medium layouts. Heck, I don't know if you remember a few months ago, I put more or less an active diorama on the cover. It's a diorama of an engine house in Staten Island. And the guy powers it up and he hustles engines around, he operates, but that's his whole layout, man. And we put it on the cover to show that it doesn't matter how big your layout is. It's that you do good modeling and that you're having fun.
Well, and you speak of some people don't have the resources or the space or any number of things. But I think another thing that people don't realize is not everybody has the desire to build a big layout. Some people only have the desire to maybe build a 6 foot by 2 foot layout. But if you build a 6 foot by 2 foot layout and you've got it completely scenic and it's photographable and everything, you've accomplished something.
Someone asked me why I'm not building my dream layout. I've talked off and on about building a layout surrounding my hometown, but backdating it when there was more freight customers and more operation action. When I got my house, first thing I looked at was the basement, and it was dry, no musty odors. And I'm like, all right, I've got a basement. I have a 1920s house in the city. The basement is not that big. If I was going to put my hometown of Katona, it would probably take up one wall of the basement. And then I'd have to turn back and start using another wall or start going to the middle of the basement. I can't build the layout that I've talked about where I have Katona and some space to run off, or maybe another town with a junction. Like, in order to make my Katona Railroad interesting, I have to build on either side of it. Just building Katona is not going to be enough operational interest. So in my case, I'm looking at my basement and I'm like, all right, I can't build that effectively, but what else can I build? And I think I've come up with an idea. I need to see if it actually works, but I'm going to build a different kind of layout. But in my case, I'm just looking at the basement. The utilities are in the middle of the room. There's a wash basin and the washer and dryer in another corner. There's limitations. I can't build. I don't have a modern house with a 4,000 square foot basement. It's and quite frankly, I run 2 magazines. I have other commitments. I try to have a rich and compelling life outside the office. It doesn't always work out that way, but not all of us want to be shackled down by large projects like that.
Well, yeah, and not everybody is. Like our buddy Uncle Dave Abel. Him and I. He's just massively interested in model railroad operations, and there is a place for big layouts. I think that's the point. There's a place for big layouts, but there's also just as an important spot for the smaller layout, because maybe you're part of an operating session, but you don't really have the desire to build a big operating layout. So you build something smaller that gives you the enjoyment of, because a big part of this hobby that I kind of like the fact that you guys are kind of going back to the, I don't know, RMC seems to me to be, I don't know what the right words are.
You're kind of like getting back to the roots of, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, just the reinstituting the tradition of the hobby.
You want to know what the secret is? I'm gonna tell everyone the secret, and maybe our friends in Waukesha will catch on. I don't know. I'm making RMC look like the magazines I remember reading when I was a kid.
Exactly.
Yes.
That's the secret, boys.
Yeah. Anyways.
Well, just to what Otto's saying, that, going back to the way they were, I agree, because I'm looking at this article by Wen Weslowski on the depot, and it's a narrative type thing, which I grew up reading MR and RMC, and it was like, here's all the instructions, here's step by step how you do it with the drawings and stuff like that. And then it changed to, here's the picture. Bill cut the wood. Bill painted the wood. Bill then glued the wood together to make the building. And, it's lost all the I'd much rather read an article like this that, for lack of a better term, a narrative or technical description of what it is than, read the pictures with captions, which don't, in my opinion, give you enough detail of what's been going on.
Or like on page 70 of the May issue of 2022, detailing an Athearn Rock Island 85-foot flat. Those are fun articles to read and get ideas from. It's or my favorite. I shouldn't pick a favorite, but I'm scrolling through, and here's my buddy Chris Adams, aka Mr. Fitness. This is just a great article about doing backdrops, and it's so much information, and I love the way. So I'm going to finish up with this, because you guys, and we're going to do this again. I'm sorry, but you're in now. Every time you try to get out, I pull you back in.
Pulls us back in.
You can check out anytime you want, but you can never leave.
Yeah, that's right.
That's a hotel out here I remember somewhere.
Exactly. And by the way, Justin, just for your information, it's 835 miles as the crow flies from Columbia Falls to Pleasanton, California.
Excellent. I'm on my way.
All right. Okay, Otto, you didn't answer the question. I didn't get around to you yet about carrying on the tradition and being part of the tradition. I'm very interested in your take on it, because I feel like it means a lot to you. We have a really good friendship, and and I'm still mad at you too. Why was I mad at you? I forget. I was mad at you for something.
I think because I missed the State of the Union.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I still haven't gotten over that yet.
I'm sorry. I'll make sure to miss it again this year.
Yes, would you please? Yeah. If you could make that a regular event. So no, I'm really interested in your take on being part of the tradition, like being, like you say, Bill Schomburg. Bill Schomburg was the editor of RMC for years. And before him, Tony Custer. Was he before or after Tony? He was
Tony Custer, and then Bill Schomburg, Chris D'Amato briefly, and then Stephen Priest, and then myself.
Yeah. I mean, we're talking like, five, you're one of the 5 guys in the MLB Major League Baseball history to hit a home run in the 9th inning with 2 on base or something. It's that kind of thing. It's not.
And I said this before, I feel Tony Custer ushered in the era when railroad model craftsman became more focused on more modern concepts that were emerging in the 1960s and 70s, things we take for granted today, like the concept of staging yards, proto-freelancing, just more interest in modeling from the prototype. You really saw a change when Tony came in, and not that RMC was a bad magazine before that, but I feel that it had its roots in crafting in general, and not that there's anything bad about that. I feel that the model railroading hobby used to be about you built a fine model of a caboose or a Pacific or a depot, but you weren't modeling the Southern Pacific Cal-P line between Oakland and Martinez. You were modeling, you put down track on a board, you had Southern Pacific trains, and maybe in your imagination you were in Martinez or Oakland or anywhere in between. But, the idea, and I think that's just how the hobby was. Either we didn't have enough tools or it just wasn't about that aspect. It was about building fine models, having them run well, and that was that. And I think Tony really helped usher in that modern era. And I say this because I have studied our magazines. I have a library of magazines. I have Model Railroader going back to the early 40s. I actually just picked up a whole bunch of issues of Model Craftsman from the 30s and 40s as I'm doing my own research. And you hold these magazines, and it's like, to say that I hold the idea of me being the editor's chair, I hate to use the word sacred, but like I am very cognizant of what I've been handed and what I have to take care of. I am merely the caretaker of this magazine until the next generation, until it gets handed off. You know what I mean? It is not mine. I am merely I am here to take care of it, nurture it, grow it, and hand it off to the next person. That's my role, as was everyone else who came before me. And I hope that doesn't sound too monastic or but I take it very seriously.
Well, and that's kind of exactly what I'm thinking. Like, that's kind of what I would expect somebody like you to say. I mean, it's kind of like being the coach of the Miami Dolphins after Don Shula. Like, he created the dynasty, and you don't want to go in there and screw it up. That's
right. Well, and that's a really good analogy, is that, all of our magazines are legacies and dynasties. It's no accident that Railroad Model Craftsman and Model Railroader are nearly the same age, and born of the same era. That's no accident. Have other magazines come and gone? Yup. And have other magazines been established since then? Have we seen more niche publications like Narrow Gauge and Short Line Gazette that we also publish? That goes back to 1975. That was filling a need for narrow gauge modelers that they didn't see. They created their own magazine that's still going strong. Think about the magazines dedicated to N scale and to O scale. Those came much later, and they're found their audience, and they're going strong. But as a baseline carrier of the hobby and its traditions and its technology and its development, it's RMC and it's Model Railroader. I'm not going to mince words. There's a reason that we're both still around, And I know, like, we joke about, being competitors and all that, but at the end of the day, we're both carrying the torch for the hobby. in different ways with different voices for sure. But there's a reason that we're both still around.
That's very cool. Very, very cool. And just to add to that whole scene back at Pillar 68, when I turned to you and I said, and don't forget about that Franz kid. And I took about, then the camera zooms in on your face and you've kind of got this furrowed brow. And as I get about 20 steps away, you yell out, "What about Wong?" I stopped dead in my tracks and I turn around and go, yeah, you better keep that guy around too. And off I went.
And he disappeared into the mist.
Yeah.
And I was left stunned for a few moments at Pillar 68, contemplating my future and wondering where my next turn would lead me.
Exactly. What a great podcast. What a cool podcast this has been. We got to do this again, guys. I say in a couple of months we do this again because I got a bunch of notes that I can scratch off history and carrying on the tradition of the magazine. But then as we were talking, I have other questions. We got to do this again in a couple of months because this was a great podcast. What do you think, Bruce?
Oh, absolutely. I have to do it again because I got questions I want to ask too.
Did you write them down?
I have committed them to a piece of paper.
Oh, look at that! Look at us being organized.
Look at that! Look at getting organized.
No, if I remember where the piece of paper is in a couple months of the opponents.
There you go. Exactly.
Well, we're really glad you guys made the time to have us. We're really glad to be here, and I'm sure we'd be happy to come back another time and continue this chat.
Let me formally invite you. Would you three gentlemen Harry? Would you be interested in coming back? Harry left.
You've stunned him into silence.
Harry's stunned silence. Going, what?
Harry just left. Apparently, Harry left 15 minutes ago.
Mute. Geez. Anyway. Yeah. I mean, I'd love to. It's been an honor to be here, and it'd be an honor to come back for sure. So, yeah. Wish I could look over your shoulder and see what the notes were, but hey.
No, can't.
It's part of the mystique of the podcast.
Exactly.
Harry.
Oh man. There's got to be a crib sheet somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. What do you think, Justin?
Oh, I thought I was coming back next week to update you on how the tree went.
No.
I thought that was going to be a new segment.
Yeah, Justin's
gardening tips.
Yeah.
Justin's tree, the continuing saga.
I'm gunning for a job on the Garden Railroad publishing side of things.
Oh.
That's right. Our new Garden Trains Annual. Edited by Chris Lane. We should get Chris Lane out here sometime too. He's a riot.
Oh, is he?
And when I say riot, I mean something that you have to call the police action to. Yes.
All right.
Yeah, he puts out some fine publications.
He really does.
ON 30 annuals. I think he's in the HON 30 annual as well, is he?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I've been trying to get.
He's got some good publications he puts out.
I've been trying to get Tony to take on another couple of publications too.
Yeah, if you notice at White River, we all wear a bunch of hats.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, yeah. Well, that's one of the questions we're going to talk about next time. When Tony told me he was being heavily involved in Diesel Era, I'm like, "What are you doing?" He says, "Oh, I can do it." I went, "No, you can't." He says, "You don't think I can?" I said, "Well, you can do it, like as in physically do it. You're certainly capable, and you certainly have the knowledge." But I said, "You don't have. You're one man, for God's sakes." And no, I can do it. And then like 3 months later, it's like, "Hey, you got time to chat?" "No, I got no time now."
But Tony's doing a great job with Diesel Era.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
really great to see that publication continue and expand.
Oh man, all you guys are doing a great job. All you guys are doing. That's part of the discussion we'll have when we come back. Bruce, can you?
Well, let me ask this question first. Then, out of how many editors are there at White River?
Honestly, we're not even sure because every time we turn around, we keep buying another magazine. So,
one of these days too, we got to get Kevin on here with you, and we'll have that discussion. But we'll save that for somewhere down the road. I met Kevin's dad 100 years ago.
Oh, Jim Udaley's a riot. He's great.
What year was that we met Jim Udaley, Bruce?
2003, I believe, when we were down in Kansas City.
And it was at Jim Udaley's layout that I said to you or somebody else, I said, "Well, just tell the other guys we died in a horrible car wreck on the way from one layout to the next because we didn't want to leave Jim Udaley's." Oh my God.
We were having such a blast. So we walk into it was a kind of an add-on to the trip we had, and we walk in and, all right, we'll see a few trains, and So he's got a train out running, and he turns to Lon and says, "You want to run a train?" Lon's going, "Well, yeah."
Yeah.
And he looks at the rest. So, "You guys want to run trains too?" "Yeah." And the next thing, "Oh, we gotta go." "Oh man."
I was running a couple of freight over the top of the summit. There were a couple of Jeep 7s on the head end, and with about 20 or 30 hopper cars. And as I crested the summit, and half the train started, and it started taking out the slack in O scale, I went, "No, we're done. We're staying here." But what about the other guys? Just tell them we died in a horrible car wreck. All right, Bruce, can you give out our email address?
Yes, our email address. Please write us and let us know what you think about this groundbreaking podcast with the three men in charge of RMC, plus other publications. Please send us an email at modelerslife@gmail.com. That's modelers with one L, modelerslife@gmail.com.
I see what you're doing there, Bruce. Groundbreaking is in a reference to Justin planting a tree.
Shh.
Oh,
Clever.
Nice. Well done, Bruce. That's what you were doing, right?
Yeah. Let's go with that.
And
well, they pay you the big bucks.
yeah, that's right. That's why they pay them the huge dollars. And
That's a pretty face.
yeah. Hey, Justin. Or no, should I ask this question of Justin or Harry?
I think you should ask the question of Justin.
All right.
Justin be the guy who won you. If it's the question, I think it is.
Yeah.
Oh, wait a minute. Before we do that, there's something else we got to do first.
I don't think so.
Which one we on? We on the free?
We're on the free.
Okay.
Justin,
Yeah.
have you ever thought of having a T-shirt with a hot dog on it?
Like a hot dog you get at the Springfield show or something like that. Like what?
Well, like a picture of a hot dog. A picture of a hot dog.
I guess. I guess I haven't thought of that.
No. Well, if you ever do desire a T-shirt with a hot dog on it, if you go to if you go to Midwest Model Railroad, and you click on their URL is midwestmodelrr.com. They're in Independence, Missouri, one of the finest model railroad shops in North America, right up there with Otter Valley.
Indeed.
If you go to the Midwest Model Railroad to their website, and you go up onto the navigation bar, and you go all the way over to the right, and you click on AML, boom, you are in a wonderland of AML merchandise. There's hats, hoodies.
I'm looking at it right now.
There you go. There's hats, hoodies, mugs, and T-shirts. And one of the T-shirts you can purchase is a T-shirt with a hot dog on it.
Mustard only, apparently. Bold take.
Yeah, exactly. So there you go. If you ever want one, there's your place to go. And also,
I'm going to order one right now.
There you go.
There you go. How about you, Al? Did you ever want a T-shirt with a hot dog on it?
Got two of them, yeah.
Beautiful. There'll be other.
Harry?
Oh, we could.
All right.
There is a good hot dog shop in town where I grew up, so that'll give you another hint.
Harry, try to contain your enthusiasm, would you? Please.
Pretty good job. Obviously, you guys haven't been. So
have you invited us? You won't even tell us where you live.
Well, if you could find the hot dog shop, you would know.
Oh, all right. There you go. And also, we have a website, amodelerslife.com. If you go there, and you'll see what episodes are coming up, and some of the recent episodes, and stuff about the Onondaga Cutoff, and stuff about all the people that are on the show, and all kinds of interesting stuff on there. And finally, one of the things you'll find on if that's right, Bruce, the other thing is, if you didn't catch the email address, Harry, you'll be interested in this. If you didn't catch the email address, if you just go to the picture of Bruce the moderately agitated mailboy in a particularly in a particularly agitated state and click on that picture, boom, automatically the email comes up. The address is already filled in. All you need is your title and your text, and you're ready to go. And we love getting viewer mail.
We indeed do. It's a lot of fun to read.
Pro or con. If you got something you want to complain about, that's the place to go. You got something you want to talk about, that's the place to go. Whether it's good or bad, we'll read it on the air. Because
even if you want to tell us about crabapple trees.
Even if you want to tell us about crabapple trees. Because, Bruce, what is the number one thing we've come to learn here after...
Transparency, not accuracy.
Transparency is rule number one here at the old AML network. but we can't verify it because whether that's correct, because accuracy has absolutely never been a consideration. And finally,
are you going to talk about Patreon?
I'm getting there.
Okay, sorry.
And one thing you should never do on a podcast is laugh at your own jokes. Never sounds good. Finally, Harry, I'm assuming you've listened to all of the free episodes and some of them twice.
Yeah, most of them, sure.
Yeah. Well, if you ever Tuesday after that and Monday is come and gone, you've listened to the free episode, you think, gosh, the rest of this week would go so much better if I had another podcast from the Modeler's Life to listen to. You just merely click on the Patreon link and boom, it'll show you how to go to Patreon, and you'll get another, just for 365 easy payments of 16 cents a day, you can have twice as much podcasting from Modeler's Life each week.
Wow.
Yeah. Do you have 16?
And for just 16 cents a day, you can feed a struggling model railroader.
Yeah, exactly.
But of course.
Only 16 cents a day, yes.
16 cents a day.
If I stop buying those $800 locomotives, I just might be able to afford it.
There you go. Exactly. Oh, yeah, exactly. How much does a new locomotive from Rapido cost? That one you reviewed this month, the Genesis unit, the Canadian Pacific Genesis unit. How much does it cost?
That's the Athearn engine there.
Yeah.
How
much is it?
Yeah, if I could probably afford one if I could just not have 17 of those Genesis locomotives.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. You could afford to have twice.
If I had 16 of those instead of 17,
then you'd have twice as much podcasting.
I could probably get by with just 16.
I think you're probably
Let me think about that.
Okay, think about that. And remember, and
I don't have any box cars because I've just got locomotives. But
all right, well, there you go. And Tuesday podcaster, we recognize that as the Antics channel. We have lots of fun over there. We talk about all sorts of things. I think that's it, boys.
And sometimes model railroading.
A lot of model railroading. Lots and lots of model railroading. I think that's it, boys. I think we're done.
That's it. We're done.
I think Justin, being the newest kid on the block, maybe he should take us out of here. What do you think?
That's what I'm thinking. Let the new guy have a shot at it.
What do you think, Otto? You're the editor. You're the guy in chief. You're the guy in charge.
Technically, since I'm the boss of these guys, I'm going to say let's give it to Justin.
All right, we can use a few laughs, eh? Justin, sometimes you guys don't say anything. I find that very unnerving.
Yeah, you wonder if they've dropped off.
Yeah, they just disappeared.
You're every
You got the deer in the headlight look.
I know. Even a grunt. If you could just grunt in my direction, that would be perfect.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, Justin, at the appropriate moment, you have to say happy rails to you. Now, there's no singing. There's no interpretation. We don't want you to dance. We just want you to say with gusto, happy rails to you. Can you handle that?
When do I know when the appropriate moment? I can handle it. When's the appropriate moment?
Just hang on. You'll figure it out.
You'll know. Well, Otto, Harry, and Justin, as we close the barn doors on another episode of A Modeler's Life and the sun slowly sets over the back 40, I guess there's nothing else left to do except for you to say,
happy rails to you.
While in Busted Knuckle, guests of A Modeler's Life podcast stay at the Casa del Sol Motor Court and Inn, where late-night dancing at the Rumba Room is a magical event to be experienced.
It's another Lincoln Homer.